Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Catalyst webinar series. My name is Blake Jurgis, Director of Player Development, Coda de Casa, and Chair of the Southern California PGA Education Committee. Thank you for joining us as we continue to bring you thought leaders who are helping shape the future of coaching, player development, and education. Today's Catalyst is proudly brought to you by our presenting partner, DRS, Digital Revenue Systems, helping facilities elevate their member experience through premium digital signage designed for golf, fitness, wellness environments. To learn more, visit digitalrevsystems.com. Today's presentation is titled Why Players Choke and What Coaches Can Do About It. Every coach has seen it. A player stripes on the range, but when the tournament starts or the pressure builds, their performance changes. As coaches, we spend countless hours improving technique, but the ability to perform under pressure often comes down to training the mind just as intentionally as we train the swing. And that's why we're excited to welcome today's featured speaker, Hallam Morgan, one of my friends. Hallam is a co-founder and co-director of the FlowCode Academy and is recognized internationally as one of the leading mental performance coaches in golf. He has worked with elite athletes and top European tour players, helping them develop the mental skills necessary to perform consistently under pressure, unlock peak performance, and experience a state of flow when it matters most. Today, Hallam will share the practical strategies that every PGA professional can use to help players build confidence, manage pressure, and perform closer to their true potential. Hallam I'm really excited for you to jump on this call with us and really share your insight with the mental game and what that looks like for us as PGA professionals. And for everyone on this call, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to integrate us with those questions with um, maybe asking in the question in the Q&A box, in the chat box. I'll be here supporting that. And if you have any questions, we will be sharing that with Hallam during the presentation. And Hallam, should we get going or what?
Absolutely. Let's get rolling. Appreciate
All
it, Blake.
right,
Thank you
let's
so much.
go. Floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you, Blake. And thank you all for joining. Really appreciate you taking the time out this morning to learn a little bit more about FlowCode and how we can support you in helping your players navigate those challenging situations on the golf course. As Blake mentioned, I know Rick was supposed to be here, but apparently he's got someone who's trying to win their second Open Championship next week. So apparently I had to take over. So apologies that you've got a Brit instead of one of your locals. Don't worry, I won't talk about the World Cup whatsoever. We'll just move and transition straight onto topic. So thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. I want to use this time as effectively as possible to really give you tangible and practical techniques that you can utilize with your players. So where I really want to kick off this entire journey is with our performance loop. And the reason I want to talk about our performance loop is because, in my opinion, it's the simplest but most powerful framework we teach at FlowCode. And it really explains this interaction between the swing and the mind. Now, all of you know Dr. Rick Sessinghaus, of course. He's one of your colleagues. So you all understand his journey, turning professional, becoming a coach first, seeing so many of his players look great in lessons, but then crumble in tournaments. And that frustrated him so much. So he went back to college, got a doctorate in applied sports psychology, because he wanted to understand what the best in the world do to perform under pressure. And of course, having developed Colin Morikawa from an 8-year-old to a 2-time major champion as both his swing and mental coach, it's a really unique combination. And I think that really reinforces Rick's knowledge and his understanding on that interaction between the swing and also the mind. So I want to start with this performance loop. And I have a question. I don't know, Blake, will I be able to see the chat? If I am able to see the chat, that would be amazing. So I have a request for everyone on this call. On this performance loop, you can see 8 different steps. We have focus at number 1, thoughts at number 2, emotion number 3. We have state, swing, result, post shot, and response. My question for you is, which of these 8 steps do you think we believe is the most important? Which of these 8 steps do you think we believe is the most important? I know every single person on here probably thinks number 5, but what do you think we believe is most important? Throw your answers into the chat box. Let me know. No right or wrong answer as such. I'll just explain my reasoning once we dive into it. Okay. I don't know if I can see the chat. I can just see.
Yeah, I have state so far.
Cool.
If anybody else has any more answers, I'd love to hear them. You can put in the Q&A box.
No worries. If everyone's quiet, we can dive into it. But I usually get a variety, right? We get a mixture. We get focus because it's the first one there, kind of a reasonable guess. We get state because we obviously talk a lot about state. I can see a few more coming in. So
Yeah.
emotion, number 8 with a response. Okay, so we get a whole mixture. I think I'm going to surprise actually the majority of people here, in all honesty. And the one that we believe is most important is number 6, the result. Now, that'll surprise a lot of people because most sports psychologists, most mental game coaches say it's not about the result, it's all about the process. And to some extent, that is true. But my question, and I can't see you, but nod your head or agree with me, maybe put a thumbs up in the chat box. Who here as a golf coach wants to help their players hit better golf shots and shoot lower scores? I'm hoping every single person, right? Every single person wants to help their players hit better golf shots and shoot lower scores. Well, the first and most important thing is we want your players to embrace that. We want them to embrace that with excitement. You all know my good friend Josh Alpert as well. I know he's a Hall of Fame coach in Southern California. And I remember going to one of his junior camps. And if you've seen the carnage that unveils at one of his junior camps, at the end of one of them, he got all of his junior golfers to grab their putter and a golf ball. And he said to them all, in a moment, we're all going to go and stand around that hole, about 20 or 30 feet from the hole, in a big circle. And I'm going to count you down, and we're all going to hit the putt at the same time. And if one of you holds the putt, I buy all of you pizza. Now, in that moment, do you think there was a single kid in that junior camp worried about missing the putt? Or do you think every single junior was excited about the opportunity to win pizza and be the hero for their buddies? It was absolutely the latter. All they were thinking about was pizza, 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 pizza. Now, I think Josh has ended up buying a lot of pizza when he set up that kind of game because it makes such a difference to their performance. They approach success rather than avoiding failure. So I know not all of your players are juniors, but at the end of the day, we're all big kids. So I want every single one of your players to be excited about the result, excited about the opportunity to win pizza. And if we can have that mentality about the result, that makes a massive impact to our performance. So if we can all agree number 6 is kind of the end goal, right? The end goal is to hit better golf shots and shoot lower scores. The question then becomes, how do we do that? How do we hit great golf shots? How do we shoot lower scores? And the golf swing absolutely does matter. I'm personally I'm not a swing coach like you guys, but of course Rick is. And he tells me, and I'm aware of the fact, that the club face tells the ball where to go. Physics doesn't lie, right? Golf swing is incredibly important. So make sure you keep supporting your players on that element of the game. But a question I have for you all again, and feel free to type into the chat box or just nod along if you're there, is how many times have you seen your players on the driving range, maybe before a tournament or just before a round of golf, and they're absolutely striping every single one? Their tempo looks great. They look confident. They look calm. And then they take that 3-minute walk to the first tee box. And as they get on that first tee box, something changes. And in that moment, they stand there over the shot and they snap hook it. They hit it 30 yards right. They top it off the first tee box. And they're wondering, like, what the hell just happened, right? I was just striping it on the range just a moment ago. Well, at FlowCode, we don't believe they forgot how to swing a golf club. What we believe is that the only thing that shifted was their state. Their mental, emotional, and physical state changed, and that impacted their golf swing. What I mean by that is heart rate increased, grip pressure became tight, and their tempo got fast. And again, I'm not a swing coach like you guys, but when those things happen, I know for sure they're producing a very different golf swing. And that different golf swing creates a different result. So hopefully we can all agree that your state absolutely does matter when you're hitting a golf shot. And the question then becomes, and I'm just going to reverse engineer backwards, where does my state come from? What makes my heart rate increase? What makes my grip pressure get tight? What makes my tempo get fast? Well, at FlowCode, what we believe is that your emotions impact your state. The feelings that you experience. If I'm anxious, nervous, or frustrated, what does that generally do to my heart rate? increases. What does that do to my grip pressure? It tightens. And what does that do to my tempo? It gets fast. On the flip, if I'm confident, if I'm experiencing confident emotions, calm emotions, if I'm present, what will that do to my heart rate? Lower, grip pressure, release, tempo, more smooth. So emotions play a massive, massive role in the state that we experience. Now let's take one more step back. Where do our emotions come from? What makes me angry, frustrated, nervous, anxious? Most people would say when I hit a bad shot. I'm sure every single player that you work with, if you ask them, what makes you most frustrated out on the golf course? They'll say, when I hit a bad shot. When I hit my shot and that horrible slice comes in, that really annoys me. Well, the big thing I want you to reframe in their mind is that it wasn't the bad shot that made them angry. It wasn't the bad shot that made them frustrated. What we believe at FlowCode is that it's their thoughts about what the bad shot means. It's their perception of the bad shot that makes them angry or frustrated. And let me give you a quick example to help explain that. I'm assuming most people, I know you're all super busy coaching, but most people had the opportunity to watch the Masters this year, and I'm sure many previous years as well. At the Masters on a Wednesday in the practice round, on the 16th hole, par 3, something quite interesting happens every single year. If anyone wants to type into the chat box, feel free to do that. I like to get engagement, but I understand everyone's busy, so no worries if not. But what happens on that Wednesday, on that par 3, is they skip balls across the water. And you see the best players in the world being playful, creative, joyful. You see them high-fiving each other, laughing. Fast forward 24 hours. Do you think we're seeing the same emotions on that tee box? Absolutely not, right? We're seeing a lot more golfers who are anxious, nervous, definitely showing signs of frustration. But why is that? Well, what we believe at FlowCode is that their thoughts, their perception of that water has shifted. In the practice round, their perception of the water is that it's a creative element of the shot. It's a playful element of the shot. And that creates that joy, that creativity, that playfulness. 24 hours later, their perception of the water has shifted totally. That water now means danger, penalty shot, hazard. And that new perception of that water is what creates the different emotion. The water itself didn't create the emotion. Because one day it created one emotion, the next day another emotion. So it can't be just the water that makes them anxious. It's their perception of the water that makes them anxious. So it becomes incredibly important to understand our players' thoughts and how they perceive their environment. That's what creates the emotions they experience. You can simplify this into a very, very basic question. Do your players perceive a situation as a challenge or as a threat? As a challenge or as a threat? If they perceive a situation as a challenge, they're more likely to experience resourceful emotions. If they perceive a situation as a threat, they're more likely to experience unresourceful emotions. So we can always ask our players that question, and we can ask ourselves that question. How can we help our players go out onto the golf course and experience every single situation as a challenge, as an opportunity, rather than a threat? Now, the final question then is, where do our thoughts come from? Now, we don't believe that you can control your thoughts, but we do believe that you can influence your thoughts by what you focus on. Where your eyes go, the mind follows. And being able to hold your focus in the present moment is absolutely a superpower. I remember one of your legends from the Olympics, Michael Phelps, listening to an interview that Michael Phelps did. And I remember him saying something that made me laugh. And apologies, Blake, if I'm going to say the wrong thing. But he said, if you've got 1 foot in the past and 1 foot in the future, you're pissing on the present, which I quite liked. Really important that we're not spending time in the past. We're not spending time in the future. Our focus is right here on what's relevant in the present moment. That is absolutely a superpower, especially in today's world. Whether you're working with young juniors or all the way up to adults, our focus levels are deteriorating rapidly. Being able to teach them how to focus in the present moment is absolutely a superpower.
Hey, Alan, I have a
So,
question for you. Is that cool?
please, far away.
Let me take a quick pause. I
Of
love
course.
this stuff, and obviously everything is super great. And I'm noticing even the people on this call right now are there's a lot of coaches on the call. I see a lot of directors of golfs or head professionals, general managers actually on this webinar, which is great to see, and I love that. Obviously, not everyone is coaching full time or coaching those juniors and adults. However, I think we all are integrate ourselves with our members or with our clientele at our facilities and stuff like that. So even for the people that are directors of golfs and head pros and general managers, um, how can this stuff, all this great information, help them out with even just even explaining to their players? I'm not saying they need to coach them by any means, by like getting that lesson or whatever it may be, but like how can we share that information with those players? Does that
Yeah, I
make
think
sense?
honestly that the simplest way to explain it is through the example that I'd love to give now. So giving them a story, an analogy, a visual representation. So the first thing I would say is, look, let's go for a moment out onto the golf course. Come with me. Go out onto the golf course. I'm talking hypothetically, not actually walk them out there. Let's imagine for a moment that we're stood on the tee box of a par three. Okay. Let's imagine for a moment that we walk up to our ball, and as we're over the ball, we take a look up and we see that all up the left hand side, there's water. So our eyes, our focus goes onto the water. And just ask that member, what thought would pop into your head? Now, the first thing, you can be the member, Blake. What thought would pop into your head as your eyes go onto the water?
Yeah, don't go there. Or
Don't go in the water, right?
yeah,
And you say, okay, super common. And when that thought pops into your head, Blake, how does that make you feel?
pretty scared and frightened.
Right. So
Anxious.
anxious, scared,
Yeah,
frightened. And when you feel those things, what does that do to your heart rate?
probably increases.
What does it do to your grip pressure?
Yeah, get a little bit tighter for sure.
Yeah. And your tempo?
Uh, Probably pretty fast. And there's that duck hook that may come into play.
Okay. Okay, for sure. And when that happens, how does that impact your golf swing without using bad language?
Oh, it's garbaggio.
Absolutely. And when you make a poor golf swing, what's the outcome of the shot?
Probably a penalty shot and added 2 strokes to my score.
Perfect. So if we could learn, not perfect, but perfect in terms of your role play, appreciate that.
Yeah,
But
you're
if,
welcome.
if we get to agree every single step along the way, the question then becomes, well, if we improved our focus, if we reframed our thoughts, if we controlled our emotions, and if we managed our state, do you agree that we could access a better golf swing and therefore hit better golf shots and shoot lower scores? Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
And the question then becomes, well, do you currently train your focus? Do you train your ability to reframe your thoughts? Do you train your ability to control your emotions or manage your state? The answer is going to be absolutely no, right? So we want to get these players to understand, these members to understand that every single one of these, they're all skills. Focus is a skill. Reframing thoughts is a skill. Controlling emotions is a skill. Managing state is a skill as well.
So it's kind of
And in
like
order to, sorry, go on.
okay, it's kind of like when you think about this focus stuff. I mean, and I'll kind of and maybe chat about this a little bit in a second, but do you feel that like focus can be somewhat like, oh, I'm too good for that, or I'm not even like, why would I even train that kind of thing? Because I think I got a question in the chat box here. It's like about ego, right? About how um, guys, ladies, whatever it is, the players maybe have an ego, like maybe they don't need to work on it, maybe they're too good for it, or um, I should be a great player if I make any mistakes, miss putts. That's the question says I get furious that I'm not as good as I think I should be at my level. So like kind of there's the ego part of it. And there's another question, but let's go that one first.
Okay, so in terms of, I think big problem is ego. I think I should be a great player. If I make any mistakes, miss any putts, I get furious that I'm not as good as I think I should be at my level. Yeah, for sure. I think there's two elements to this. Number one is we always want to encourage players to have standards of behavior rather than expectations of results. Okay, so if you are holding your focus on, I expect to achieve a certain result, I expect to make a putt, I expect to hit a great shot, I expect a certain outcome, you're setting yourself immediately up for failure. What we encourage all players of all levels and all ages to do is hold standards of behavior instead. What behaviors do you need to showcase in order to give yourself the best opportunity of creating a certain outcome? And if you hold yourself accountable to those behaviors, that makes a huge, huge difference. So that slight shift around standards of behavior rather than expectations of results can be really, really powerful. I think the second component to that, I'm just seeing the other questions
Yeah.
come in. Cool. Biggest issue is with my clients' embarrassment, feel they're not good enough to be on the course. Try to encourage them to understand the game. It's for fun, not their job. Not many players are pros, etc. Yeah, I mean, that's always a massive challenge, right? Always a massive challenge when people believe they're not good enough to be on the course. And we, of course, want to continue to change that narrative and give them a new story. The big thing that we always say, especially around beginner golfers, because there's sometimes a pushback from beginners on like, well, mental game stuff is just for elite players, right? Almost the flip of what you were saying, Blake.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I believe that regardless of what you're trying to achieve, every single player, whether you're a beginner or if you're an elite golfer, you have a goal in mind, right? You're trying to get better. You're trying to improve. And that requires improvement in performance. Performance is state dependent. So if you want to get better, if you want to be your best, regardless of what your best is, learning to manage your state is absolutely vital. We've just discussed that. But the second part of this for beginner golfers is that learning is also state dependent. So I'm sure many of you as coaches or even head professionals and directors of golf, you've had conversations with some of your members where they're almost like they get too anxious in lessons, right? They get too anxious just going out on the golf course with the head pro, with the coach. They get too anxious on the range with other people watching. If they're in that kind of state, in that learning environment, they're not maximizing their learning curve. So teaching your students how to manage their state, how to shift from that fear, that anxiety, that frustration over to focus, calm, confidence, clarity is not only going to improve their performance, it's going to improve their learning curve. It's going to accelerate the amount of information that you can communicate to them successfully, and therefore going to help you guys achieve your goals much quicker as well. So that's why state management is so important, not just for performance, but also for learning.
Yeah, I think that's like the question that was being asked, right? It's like in the embarrassment part of it, right? They feel like they're embarrassed to be out there, and maybe that's more in the beginner side of things, right? Or maybe like the player that experiences anxiety doesn't want to see their coach or their professional on the golf course, you know. Um, I think as coaches or just as people, we want to be less on the range and get out of that idea of like, hey, I hit it so great on the range, and my swing is great, and I go to the golf course, and that state management now changes, right? And I think
Yeah,
if we as coaches can kind of translate more of our coaching or more of our experiences with our students out on the golf course, we'll kind of get them in that state of mind and where we can talk about the performance loop in a more of a clear way. And obviously, we can talk about the training aspect on the range and how performance loop can kind of go around that part of it. And I think,
absolutely.
and obviously, like I use FlowCode. The principles behind it and all the things that I've been over the last few years been really a part of and learning has been really helping my players be better mental game players. And I think a question in here talking about the state changes, right, and the emotional,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
the emotional regulation and the coping mechanisms that happen with a heart rate and how that increases. How can us as coaches be able to, I mean, obviously utilizing flow code, but like just as coaches, how can we use this performance loop to really train that heart rate and try to make it at a baseline that makes it best for the player?
yeah, absolutely. And that's perfect. And it's almost as if Brian knew where I was going to transition next. So appreciate that, Brian. So in terms of the performance loop, then we talked about four main skills, right? We can't cover them all today. And each one, there's another deep dive into how we help our players develop them. So focus, reframing thoughts, controlling emotions, but then managing state. And I want to hone in on managing state, not just because Brian asked, but also because I believe personally it's one of the most important. We're going to get distracted, right? Players, regardless of how much we train it, they're still going to get distracted. We're human beings. We're also going to get intrusive thoughts. You can't prevent those thoughts from coming in. We're also going to experience some negative emotion. We see the best players in the world get frustrated, angry, etc. But I genuinely believe even if you experience all those things, if you learn how to manage your state, you can still access, I'm not saying your best golf swing, but you can still access a good enough golf swing. And when you access that, you can still hit good enough shots and get good enough results. So managing your state is exactly what happens the moment at execution, right? That's the thing that's most important, in my opinion. That's the thing that's most closely impacting the golf swing. So in terms of how we manage state, before I kind of share with you the different examples, I want to begin by, I guess, prefacing this, and that is that there are so many ways people can manage their state. There's no one that's the best or one that fits all. Every single one of your players, they're all unique. I'm assuming they all have different golf swings. They probably all have different personalities, different heights, different weights, whatever. They're all unique. They will also have different mental techniques that shift their state more effectively for each individual. So the way that I like to explain what we help people achieve at FlowCode is through this simple analogy. And I think this analogy is one that you can definitely make notes on and you can share with your players, because when I've presented it, it really clicks with players and makes them understand and get excited about the opportunity to improve their state. And it goes like this. So run with me as if you're a player. Let's imagine that we were in the middle of the fairway, second shot into a par 4. Let's imagine that we had 150 to the flag, water short and water long. Let's imagine for a moment that we turn to our golf bag and we realize that all we have in our golf bag is our putter. Blake, you can be my guest again. How would that make you feel?
Don't even know what to do, honestly. Like, gotta.
Confused, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Lost, confused, maybe anxious, maybe nervous, definitely not confident.
No.
Now let's imagine the exact same scenario. 150 to the flag, water short, water long. But this time, Blake, you turn to your golf bag and you've got that perfect 4-iron, because I know you hit 4-iron 150 yards. So
Perfect.
you hit that, you grab that 4-iron out of your bag. You grab that perfect club for 150 out your bag. You pull it out your bag. How does that now make you feel?
I mean, am I hitting the 4 on 150 or am I hitting the 4 on like I normally
I'm
hit
joking.
it?
I'm joking. Your perfect club from 150, right?
Yeah,
Your
yeah, yeah.
perfect, whatever
I
that
feel,
is,
yeah,
whatever that is.
definitely more confident, right? Being able to like know
Yeah,
that I have a weapon of choice that I can able to at least have a
absolutely.
chance, right?
Yeah, you might still realize it's a challenging shot, but you definitely feel more prepared, more confident, more ready for what's ahead. But nothing really changed with the actual external situation, right? It was still 150 shot, still water short, still water long. The only thing that changed was the tools that you had in your toolkit to overcome the challenge. Now, you're probably all wondering, how does this relate to the mental game? Well, we believe at FlowCode that most people go out onto the golf course. Most of your members go out onto the golf course. They face a mental challenge that is inevitable, right? They feel some pressure. They get frustrated. They feel a bit anxious. Their heart rate increases. And in that moment, they turn to their mental golf bag to see what they have to overcome it, and it's empty. They have absolutely nothing in their mental golf bag to help them overcome it. Or at best, they have that one golf club. Golf's miserable enough with a full set of clubs, let alone one golf club, right? So what we want to help people achieve is we want to help them fill up their mental golf bag with as many mental golf clubs as possible. So when they experience some anxiety, some nerves, some pressure, they can turn to their mental golf bag and say, that's no problem. That's that breathwork golf club. That's that visualization golf club. That's that body scan golf club. Because our goal isn't to prevent them from experiencing anxiety and pressure and nerves. Our goal is to help them navigate it better and give them the belief that when it shows up, they have the tools, they have the skills to overcome it. That's what we're trying to achieve. So I wanted to just preface that first, that that's the goal we're trying to achieve. Now, to answer Brian's question on specific ways that players can do that, I'm going to share 4 very high-level ways you can do that. And I'll dive into a couple of examples specifically. So the first way that we can help our players shift their state is through any of our human senses, any of their human senses. So we can use sight, hearing, smell, taste even. We can use touch. We can use breath. We can use our physical bodies to shift our state in any given moment. And I'll share with you actually a quick example of one that we saw in a recent PGA Tour event. So for those of you that saw the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, Colin Morikawa got the win, which obviously Rick's very happy about, and we're happy for him for sure. But something interesting happened on the 18th hole. And for those of you that saw it, Colin had about a 30-minute wait for his final shot into the 18th green. Jacob Bridgman was having some troubles up top on the beach, and Colin had a very long wait. But something interesting happened in that moment. Colin didn't stand by his bag and start thinking about, oh, if I could just get the ball up by the green and chip it on and hold the putt, I'm going to win the tournament. And I haven't won in a couple of years. And he also wasn't thinking about the bogey he made on the par 3. Like, oh, why did I pull that left? And oh, if I'd have just made par there, I'd have had no pressure coming up the last. He did something interesting and the cameras caught it. He walked over to the cliff edge. He looked out across the ocean, which I know is favorable. We don't all get to be at Pebble Beach, but most of you guys in California have beautiful views around you. I'm aware of that. But he looked out to the ocean and he implemented something called expanded awareness. So we teach at FlowCode soft focus with expanded awareness. You pick a point in the distance. I'm looking at a specific tree out my window. I relax my eyes on that point, almost to the stage where I'm squinting and my vision's gone a little bit blurry. I keep my focus softly on that point, and I gradually become aware of 180 degrees around me without moving my eyes. When I do that, it sends a message to my brain that everything is okay. The opposite would be darting your eyes around. When we get nervous and anxious, we move our eyes around a lot. And that activates what we call the sympathetic nervous system. It activates that fight or flight response because we're telling our brain, literally, there's danger. We're looking around for the danger. Increases heart rate, hands get clammy, and all of a sudden, we're in that stress state. So by keeping our eyes very still and becoming aware of 180 degrees around us, it's a really powerful sensory technique that we can utilize. Of course, we can manipulate breath. We always recommend what's called a slow breath. So we inhale through the nose, fully expanding through the belly. And then we do a long, slow, extended exhale through pursed lips. So we imagine that we have a cocktail straw between our lips and we extend that exhale for as long as we possibly can. If you work again with players, I always recommend using the feedback of your hand. So ask them to hold their hand in front of their face and exhale normally. They'll feel the air hit their hand quite strongly. Then ask them to repeat using pursed lips, but this time I want them to exhale so softly and so slowly that they can only just about feel that air hitting their hand. And when you get them into that rhythm of breath, that lowers heart rate and puts them into that focused and calm state that we're looking for. 2 sensory techniques. The second way we can shift state for our players is through cognitive flow. So this is all about your mindset. There are 2 main ones that we teach here, self-talk and recall. We all know our players have terrible self-talk. Teaching them how to be more specific and, of course, more focused on the target with their self-talk is incredibly important. But the main one for me and another takeaway for you all, for your students, is recall. If I asked, or if you asked any of your members to give a list of all the bad shots they hit over the last month, I'd imagine that's going to be a pretty long list for most people. We then ask them, give me a list of all the great shots you've hit in the past month, and that list is normally significantly shorter. We want to start to at least balance that out. So something that Rick has done for many, many years and continues to do with his players, no matter what level they are, the best players in the world, all the way down to beginners, is get them to keep a great shot book. Write every single club in your bag into your phone notes or into an actual book. And under each one, write a great shot that you've hit with that club. Not just writing 6-iron down the middle of the fairway. Describe it in as much detail as possible. When you recall it, activate as many senses. What did that shot sound like? What did it look like? What did it feel like? Maybe what did the environment even smell like, right? How did it feel in your hands, tactile? Describe as many of the senses that you experienced during that moment and give as much detail as possible. Rick shared this story of Colin many times about how he used that to win his first major championship, the PGA Championship at Harding Park. He hit an unbelievable shot on the 16th hole in the final round. He hit a drivable par 4 to 6 foot, rolled the putt in to make eagle. But he'd never hit driver on that hole all week. The only reason he did in that moment was because they'd moved the tee box up, the wind had shifted off the left, and they'd brought the pin position to the front right. And as he did his calculations, he realized that it was the exact same yardage, the exact same wind, and the exact same pin position as a shot he'd hit just the month before when they did a back-to-back week in COVID at Murfield Village. So he recalled that past great shot and said, well, I've done it before, I'll just do it again. Now, of course, there's all the puzzle pieces that lead to that as well, but that played a huge role in him getting that across the line. So cognitive ways are really, really important. The final two, and I'll just move through these pretty quick, are social. We're impacted, our state is impacted by our social surroundings. We all know people that put us into flow, and then we all know people like Blake who put us into fear, right? We don't necessarily control who we spend time with, who we're partnered with when we go out to play. Our members don't always get to choose that. We don't always get to choose who our members are. So we can't control that element, that part of these flow channels. And that's why sensory and cognitive become even more important for your members, because they are always in their control. And then the final one is environment. Our environment impacts our state as well. I'm in a very different state if I'm on a golf course versus at the shopping mall with my girlfriend. And I'll let you all decide which one's fear and which one's flow. But we know environments impact our state. Again, we can't control that. Our members can't always control the conditions of the course or the weather conditions. So they have to have sensory techniques and cognitive techniques to shift their state in that moment. So there are 4 ways that we can start to help our players develop that state management that we talked about. And my goal, whenever we work with a player, using these techniques is to help them achieve 4 skills under state management. I first of all want to help them develop the skill of speed. How quickly can they shift their state from active, lots of processing, to a focused and calm state? That skill is so, so important in a pre-shot routine, because when we approach the ball and we put the bag down, we have to do a lot of thinking. We have to collect a lot of information. We have to process that information and make a decision. That requires a lot of thinking. But then very shortly after, we have to shift from being an analyzer to an athlete. When we're over the ball, we don't want to still be analyzing. We want to be focused and calm. So teaching our players very quickly to shift state from the analyzer to the athlete in that pre-shot routine is absolutely vital. The second skill that I help them develop is awareness. How aware of their state are they? Do they even know what it feels like intuitively to be in that focused and calm state versus that active processing thinking state? If they have awareness, only when they have awareness of what their state is, can they actually make a change? Can they actually shift state? So we use a lot of technology, and that's for another day, but we use technology to help them build a better relationship with their intuition rather than replace their intuition. The third skill that we help them develop is consistency. So when they get into this focused and calm state, can they maintain it for an extended period of time? So important in between shots. In between shots is where our players spend the most time on a golf course. And if their state is active the entire time, or if it's jumping up and down, they're just draining their energy levels. We know so many of our players and members who get to the end of a round, last few holes, and they're exhausted. Not just physically exhausted, but mentally exhausted as well. So teaching them how to maintain that focused and calm state in between shots is so, so important. And then the final skill is depth. Can we teach them to really increase the intensity, the depth of state they get into? can they be truly focused and calm versus just a bit focused and calm? We see the best players in the world on TV, in person. You see their eyes. They look like predators hunting down their prey. Like, it's a different level of focus. So can we teach our players to increase that depth, get even more deeply into the state that we're looking to achieve? And we use all of these techniques, a whole variety of these techniques, to help them achieve that. What I'd actually love to do, Blake, we have, and I know you've used them before, but we have the FlowCode cards. So we have these FlowCode cards that have hundreds of these different techniques on them, specific to pre-shot routine and how they can apply them. So I'd be more than happy after this session to share those FlowCode cards with anyone that would like them. So just let me know how we best distribute those and I can get them out, because it's a great way to start introducing these different techniques to your players so they can experiment, so as they can find their own code for flow, so they can find which techniques work best for them as an individual.
Yeah, we can
Sorry, I know
definitely do that.
that's
I
a bit of a
mean,
ramble.
okay, we can send that email out to everybody too. Like that's on this call. We'll send a follow-up email, so we can share that over, with everyone on this call.
Perfect.
It would be easy for us to
Perfect.
do that.
Amazing. Did I miss any questions? Were there any?
No, I think one of the questions was, I mean, talking about humility, right? Talking about how, um, like how do we teach humility on the golf course? And
Yeah.
I think that's obviously a good one. I think that comes the ego part of it too, right? Like being able to be macho,
Yeah.
right? And I can do the hero shot and all these things versus knowing that my skills aren't necessarily there. And I think it's kind of with, I think when you're talking about the Colin Morikawa shot, what I'm hearing is like, yes, Colin never hit a driver on that 16th hole at TPC Harding Park, right? And obviously hit a phenomenal shot. But I think he was prepared. I think he knew exactly what his game looks like at that moment in time. And even the stakes that he had were obviously high, but he recalled a shot. I know you and I, we talk about anchoring a lot of the times, right? We anchor on those shots that we've had, that recall, that shot we've maybe had in the past that we're able to kind of pull out and be like, oh, I've hit that shot, and now I'm going to kind of have that same feel, that same swing, whatever it may be. I think that's where I think Colin obviously has been trained the mental game. So obviously it's been so great in his success in his career. But I think a lot of players as amateurs, I think the preparation part of it is a lot of times players think that they expect to hit like good shots. And so when a good shot happens, they kind of just like, oh, it's a good shot and it is what it is. And like we'll throw away those good ones, right? And then we hit a bad one and then we are like, oh my gosh, what happened? Such a bad golf swing. And then I hold on to that bad shot and we anchor on the bad shots. So I think amateur players, I think, uh, anchor on bad shots and then throw away the good shots versus
All the time.
the latter, which would be, hey, anchor on the good shots and then throw away the bad shots, right? We can learn from these experiences, but I think that's where Colin kind of allowed himself, like, okay, I'm on the 16th hole, I have 3 holes to play. I think he has a 1 shot lead at the time, or maybe I think it was maybe tied for the lead at the time.
I
Um,
believe, yeah.
Yep. And then so he goes in and plays a shot that he hasn't played in the past. However, I think that anchoring mechanism and that experience that he had in the past was able to allow him to hit the shot of the tournament to win a major tournament, right? And I think as
Absolutely.
amateur golfers can, whether they're advanced golfers or beginner golfers, I think we all can agree we've hit somewhat of a good shot relative to us. And I think if we can imagine those good shots, it gets us more of a prepared state of mind, which hopefully will allow us to be more in that flow state versus if I hit a bad shot, now I'm only thinking about that bad shot, and that's what affects my state or my emotion, which is kind of going back into the performance loop.
Yeah, for sure. The little test that I do often with players I work with is I ask them randomly, like just throw it out there. They're not expecting it, but I say, without them realizing, I say, well, tell me a great shot that you've hit with your 6 iron. And if they can answer it without hesitation, I'm like, okay, that's pretty anchored. That's anchored strong. If they struggle, then I say, right, go away and make sure you write down in your great shot book a shot that you've hit, a great shot you've hit with your 6 iron. And next time I ask you, I want you to be able to answer it without hesitation. So the ideal would be without hesitation, we can ask any club in their bag, and they're able to respond immediately and give you a very clear shot, great shot that they've hit. But I think the other element around humility as well, Blake, is it kind of leans into what we call flow personality. So we teach two things, right? Flow performance, which is very much this state management, the performance loop. What can we do in the moment to shift our state? What can we do in the moment to focus better, etc. But we also believe massively in building a flow personality, which comes down more to your daily habits, your rituals. How do you show up on a regular basis? And that impacts your baseline flow personality. So the way that we can help people, I think, be more have more humility out on the golf course is by teaching them what we call the 7 flow mindsets. And I'm just going to skim over them just purely because we haven't got much time. I'm aware of that. But the first one is gratitude mindset. How can we be in a state of gratitude intentionally? How can we be in a state of gratitude when we go out on the golf course? And I might say to one of my students, on hole 1, I want you to spend the entire hole just trying to be as grateful as possible, the entire hole. The second mindset that we teach is a playful mindset. So I'll then say, right, I want you to spend the entire second hole trying to be as playful as you possibly can. The next one is about being an observer mindset. So third hole, observe your thoughts, be super aware, observe your breath, observe tension in your body. Focus on that for the third hole. The next one would be awe mindset. How can you be in awe of everything whilst you're playing that hole? And I'll just give you the final 3, but the next one then is creator mindset. How can I be in a creator mindset? How can I use visual imagery the entire hole? How can I imagine that I'm literally a painter with a blank canvas? The next one then would be growth mindset. How can I learn from every single thing on this hole? And then the final one is what we call transpersonal, which is about understanding how you impact others around you and how you gain energy from the people around you. So how can you actually be of service to people on this next hole? And by focusing purely on being of service to others, that can also shift your state significantly. So that's a simple exercise I would genuinely get people to do that I think could teach humility and help improve people's humility levels on the golf course because they're starting to act more in a flow personality from the outset.
Yeah, it's great, Helm. And I mean, these stuff is, like you said, you're not a PJ golf professional, right? We're not a swing coach. However, like this stuff right here, kind of anybody can do. And we would say that most importantly, what would matter more is it the swing or the mental game, right? What kind of what's going to give you the better scores, right? And majority of the time is that we say the mental game is important, however, we don't train the mental game, right? And I think just having these like little simple little key thoughts in what we're talking about right now with obviously the flow channels, the performance loop. Some of the, I mean, I know people on this call can kind of recall maybe some of their students or some of their members that maybe struggle with some of these things, whether with anxiety or anger or nerves or I know a lot of maybe state club championships are coming up for these golf courses, and these simple key strategies will let them play better golf. And I think as owners and operators and professionals, like when people play better golf, um, they want to maybe spend more money at the golf course. They play more golf. They invite their buddies to play more golf, right? And these little simple mental game strategies will um, allow these players to basically feel more comfortable, and be more um, just better scoring, right? And I think that's kind of we go back to the very beginning question, which what's more important out of all the performance loop questions, which is the result.
Yep, for sure. I mean, they're going to enjoy the game more as well, right? We spoke a lot today about how it improves their performance, but ultimately, I think whether you're a golf coach or whether a director of golf or a head professional, your goal is to get people playing more golf as well, right? So we want people playing more golf because that impacts everyone and improves everyone's world. They're not going to play much golf if they're not enjoying it, right? If it's miserable every time they go out, they're not going to play much golf. If we can teach them these techniques, they're going to enjoy golf more. Yes, they're going to play better, but they're going to play with a smile on their face as well. And that's just as important, in my opinion, just as important as performance.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there any more questions for Hallam and um, kind of talking about the mental game. If you guys can last call for questions, and then we'll wrap up here shortly. But I mean, this is obviously great stuff, and I love um, this as far as coaches go. And we have obviously the National Teaching Summit in Southern California in October, and being able to have some of the best teachers around the country be able to help us with kind of all the stuff with playing better golf. And so, if anybody on this call, if you haven't seen the Play the Game summit that will be happening at Virginia Country Club in October, I highly recommend coming out to that. That obviously be around all areas, especially part of it will be mental game as well, and um, it'll be a phenomenal education experience. Just like how I mean, Hallam, thanks so much for providing just great content for our professionals and how we can get our players to play better golf and have more fun with the game.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
was always a pleasure to it's always a pleasure to catch up with you, Blake. But
Uh,
it's on record, so I don't want to catch that.
I love it. Well, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to, you can email us. We'll send out a recap of this webinar and get those flow cards over to people as well. But Hallam, thank you so much. Everyone's call. We have another webinar series in a couple weeks, and looking forward to that. But Hallam, thank you so much. And I guess
Thank you, Blake.
you're in for England in the World Cup. Is that correct?
Let's
I
go.
know.
Hopefully, you're all going to root for England now. So, yeah, Saturday will be a big day. We'll see how we get on.
All right, sounds great. All right, everybody, have a great
Okay.
your day, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.
Thank you, guys. All the best.